let's talk hard numbers. Each
Sure.
week, Signal highlights some of the global hard numbers. This one, of course, is particularly of interest to me, 3,500.
So the Islamic State West Africa province, which is a Nigerian jihadist offshoot of ISIS, now is estimated to have 3,500 fighters in its ranks, which is more than analysts believe the original ISIS, the OG ISIS in Syria and Iraq actually has under their control, which points out an interesting question, which is as ISIS loses territory in the Middle East, in the Levant, is it going to try to expand to other areas? We've seen expansion in North Africa, particularly in Libya in recent years, but West Africa is a key focus now as the organization tries to sort of shift its focus.
I don't want to get too in the weeds about this, but how does that play into Boko Haram, which has been there since about 2009 and is a fairly significant terror organization affiliated with ISIS as well in West Africa, specifically in northeastern Nigeria?
Well, the relationship between the two, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what that is. I mean, what you sometimes see though is, there was a ISIS, originally was kind of affiliated with Al Qaeda, and then they ended up being rivals.
Right. That's what it sort of was getting at.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know the dynamic specifically between the new ISIS offshoot and Boko Haram, but that would be something to watch because it compounds the violence and instability if jihadist groups are not only at war with the government but with each other as well.
Yeah, and I feel like my close friend used to be the Consul General to Nigeria, the U.S. Consul General to Nigeria, and he, there hasn't been enough focus from the United States on what is happening in West Africa with the rise of Islamic jihadism. And I think that may come back to bite us at some point.
That's probably not going to happen anytime soon, right? The shift has been domestic.
Yeah, for sure.
So, 1,692.
So in the first half of this year, 1,692 civilians have been killed in Afghanistan. That is a record for a 6-month period.
6 months.
Just as a reminder, this is a war that the U.S. has been involved in for 17 years now. 17 years. This is the longest war in U.S. history, and it's unclear what the U.S. has really accomplished there. U.S. working with NATO, of course, other allies up until 2014. But the violence in Afghanistan and instability continues. This is despite a brief ceasefire between the government and the Taliban earlier this year. They got to sit down and talk to each other. There's the only way out of this.
I'm trying to debate because we're running out of time, but let's go with 160.
Good. That was the one I wanted you to go with. That's so interesting to me.
So this is great. So there are $160 billion worth of gold locked away in various Hindu temples around India. Locked up in the, you probably remember from your finance days that Indian imports of gold is like a huge issue, right?
Yeah.
Huge. So there is actually $160 billion worth of gold sitting in Indian temples, and it's increasingly become a security problem because people are now trying to break into the temples and steal the gold, and it's a very impious activity.
Because 70 million people still live in poverty.
70 million still people live in poverty, and a good deal more than that live in, above the poverty line, but still under conditions that we would not consider.
Is the government, intervening in any way, or is it just sort of a public conversation about how are we going to keep this gold secure?
Well, it's up to the gods. It's in the temple.
Up to the gods, it is.
We're all converting.
Jeez. Alex Kliment, thank you so much.
Pleasure as always, guys.
You can check out all of these stories and more by subscribing to the Signal newsletter. Just sign up for it at GZEROmedia.com.